James run out of your room? But why didn't he say anything? Was he hiding? I can't breathe. The words escape my lips in a desperate, gasping breath. My heart is pounding, my chest tight, my throat feels like it's closing in on itself. But the most terrifying part? I'm still asleep. I'm not dreaming this. I'm wide awake in my mind, but my body is paralyzed by the suffocating fear that is swallowing me whole. It happens every single night, without fail. The room feels heavier. My body feels heavier. I feel like I'm drowning, except I'm not in water. And every night, my mum is there, like clockwork, urging me to go back to sleep. But how can I sleep when I feel like I'm dying every time my eyes close? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I'm Hannah, 17 years old. I've spent the past few months waking up like this, gasping, struggling. My body has betrayed me. It's as though something's shutting down inside of me each time I sleep, and I can't do anything to stop it. The worst part? Nobody believes me. Relax, Hannah, my mum says, shaking her head. You're just stressed out. It's all in your head. Get some rest. You'll feel better. How can I explain that it's not just in my head, that I really am suffocating when I sleep, that I've started dreading the night, terrified of what might happen if I close my eyes again? I can't even remember the first time it happened. Maybe it was during a school test, maybe it was when I was alone at home. All I know is that it got worse, much worse. That's when I decided to go see a doctor. Well, my mum decided I was only 17. And she had that voice, the one that didn't take no for an answer. I had to go. So, there I was in a doctor's office, explaining my nightly episodes to a professional who barely looked up from his laptop. The doctor, in his dry monotone voice, suggested a sleep study. A night in a sleep lab, nothing too serious, he said. Just routine. But when he said routine, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was wrong. Something more than what anyone was willing to acknowledge. Something was killing me in my sleep, and I wasn't sure if I could survive it for much longer. The night of the sleep study was like a dream. Not in a good way. The room smelled sterile, the beeping of machines everywhere, wires strapped to my face and chest, and a soft buzz in the background. I felt like I was in a lab rat's experiment. But then came the moment that would change everything. I was lying there, trying to fall asleep like I had done 1,000 times before, but this time, something was different. I could feel it. My breath started slowing down. And before I knew it, the machines began beeping loudly. I didn't realize what was happening, but I could see James, the sleep tech, looking at the monitor. His face went pale, his eyes wide, and then he froze. For a moment he didn't move, but then he bolted out of the room, running as fast as he could. The door slammed behind him. He shouted through it, "Get help, now." I felt my chest tightening, my lungs were gasping for air, and everything around me blurred. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was close my eyes and pray I didn't die in that cold room. But that night, that was only the beginning of everything I never thought I'd have to face. What happened in that sleep lab would haunt me, would change my life forever. Now, I'm about to find out if I'm going to make it through all this. Because whatever James saw, whatever happened while I was sleeping, I need answers, and it's about to get worse. Much worse. I woke up gasping for air again. The same panic, the same struggle. My body jerked up in bed as if it were the first time, but it wasn't. This time it felt worse. My chest was tighter, and it took even longer for me to catch my breath. I reached for the oxygen mask that the nurse had given me at the sleep lab, but it was nowhere in sight. I couldn't really breathe. My fingers fumbled around, the panic in my chest making everything feel like it was happening in slow motion. I heard my mum's voice from the hallway, her footsteps hurrying down the hall. "Hannah, are you okay?" The words were muffled. The room was spinning. I could barely hear her over the sound of my own pulse roaring in my ears. I wanted to tell her that everything was fine, that I just needed a minute. But I couldn't, the words wouldn't come. She burst into the room and flicked the light on. What happened? I can't breathe. I whispered. The words felt weak, insignificant in comparison to the suffocating fear that was wrapping itself around me like a vice. I heard her call 911 again, but by then I didn't care. The paramedics were probably used to me by now. They arrived, taking their usual routine, hooking me up to machines, calming me down with questions I could barely answer. I was shaking too hard to make sense of the world. The truth was, I hadn't been able to make sense of it for months. No matter what the doctors told me, the sleep study results only gave me more questions. It felt like I was being pulled deeper into a hole that nobody could see. The worst part, I was alive, but I didn't feel like it. The days after the sleep study were a blur. At least during the day, I could forget about the tightness in my chest. But when night fell, when the house grew still, and my mum was fast asleep in her own bed, that was when the fear hit the hardest. The thought of lying down again, closing my eyes, knowing that I might stop breathing in my sleep, that terrified me more than anything. My mum kept insisting it was all stress. "It's just your mind, sweetie," she'd say, trying to calm me down, though I could hear the worry creeping into her voice. It wasn't just me, it was like she was trying to convince herself too. The doctor said it was just sleep apnea, that it was nothing to be afraid of. But I knew something was off. The night after my latest episode, I sat in front of the mirror. My hair was messy, tangled from sleep, my eyes red from crying. I could barely recognize myself. The person staring back at me seemed like a stranger. Was I going crazy? Was I imagining all of this? Or was there really something wrong? I wanted answers. But every time I thought I was getting closer, I felt like I was falling further away. I couldn't shake the feeling that the sleep study hadn't been just a routine checkup. The look on James's face when he ran out of that room haunted me. It was the same feeling I had every time I woke up, gasping for air, like something was terribly wrong, and nobody was telling me what it was. The uncertainty ate at me. The isolation. The feeling of being trapped inside my own body. And then came the next phone call. I'd been waiting for this call, the one that would give me the results of the sleep study. I didn't even want to answer at first. But I did. "Hannah?" The voice on the other end was calm, professional, too calm. I braced myself. "The results came in," the doctor continued. "I'm afraid you have severe sleep apnea. It's worse than we initially thought." The words hit me like a punch in the gut. Severe, worse. I stayed silent, the words hanging in the air. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout at the doctor for not telling me sooner, but instead, I just asked, "What do I do now?" "You'll need a CPAP machine," he said. "You'll need to wear it every night to help you breathe while you sleep. It's going to be difficult, but it's your best option." The phone call ended, and for the first time, I felt completely alone. The next few days were a blur of doctor appointments, tests, and equipment. The CPAP machine arrived, and I stared at it with disbelief. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie with its plastic tubes, mask, and complicated controls. It was the last thing I wanted to wear, but I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to survive this, I had to try. That night, I finally worked up the courage to put it on. The mask felt heavy against my face, and the air pressure was strange, forcing air into my lungs with every breath. But it was supposed to help, right? It was supposed to fix everything. I couldn't sleep. No matter how many times I tried to adjust it, the mask felt wrong. The sound of the machine's steady hum made me feel more anxious, not less. Every time I moved, I worried the mask would come off. I tossed and turned, trying to ignore the overwhelming sensation that I wasn't going to be able to breathe. What if this didn't work? What if the machine didn't help me after all? What if I stopped breathing again? And this time, there was no one around to save me. By morning, I was exhausted. I hadn't slept a single hour, but I had to go on with the day, pretending everything was fine. I went to school, though I felt like a zombie. My eyes were heavy, my brain foggy. Everyone around me was oblivious to the battle happening inside my body every time I closed my eyes. But even though my friends didn't know, I could feel the strain in their eyes. They noticed the bags under my eyes, the way I wasn't quite the same. It wasn't just my physical exhaustion, it was the mental exhaustion too. The constant, ever-present fear that I might not wake up in the morning. That afternoon, I got a call from the sleep lab. I wasn't expecting it. I had no idea who could be calling me. My mum wasn't home, and I had just finished my homework. "Hannah!" The voice on the other end was clipped, urgent. It was James, the sleep tech. "We need you to come in for a follow-up test immediately." "Is something wrong?" I asked, my heart leaping into my throat. "I thought it was just a routine follow-up. There's something we need to discuss. Please just come in as soon as possible. It's important." The panic hit me immediately. Was this it? Had the machine failed already? Were my worst fears coming true? I didn't waste any time. I told my mum, and we drove back to the sleep lab. The car ride was unbearable. Every passing minute felt like an eternity. My stomach was in knots, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was really wrong. When we arrived at the lab, the atmosphere felt different. The room was dark, quiet. The machines were humming lowly, but there was an unsettling tension in the air that I couldn't shake. James was there waiting for me, and his usual calm demeanor was gone. He looked uneasy, as if he had something he needed to say but didn't know how. "We've reviewed your results again," James said, leading me to a chair. "And we're seeing something unusual. Your oxygen levels dropped significantly during your sleep. Worse than before." I felt my breath catch in my throat. "What do you mean?" "Your body is stopping breathing for extended periods of time," James said. "It's not just sleep apnea. We've seen something that looks like it's something more serious. We need to run more tests." My heart pounded in my chest. "How serious are we talking?" "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but we need to find out." The air in the room suddenly felt suffocating, and I had to fight the urge to bolt out of the chair. The uncertainty was crushing me. The CPAP machine wasn't working. I was still stopping my breath. And now, whatever this new thing was, it could be even worse. James's face softened as he spoke again, but the urgency in his voice didn't change. "Hannah, we need to act fast. I know this is scary, but we can't ignore what we're seeing." I nodded, but inside, I was shaking. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't keep living like this. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The days blurred together as I awaited the follow-up tests. Every minute felt like an eternity. The feeling of airlessness, of suffocating in my own sleep, haunted me, and the fear that something was seriously wrong kept growing. Each time I closed my eyes, I couldn't shake the image of myself, lying lifeless, unable to breathe, slipping away without anyone knowing. My mum could see it too. Her eyes, once full of concern, now held a deeper worry, one that matched the dread I felt in my chest. "Honey, you look exhausted. We need to get you some real answers," she said, her voice a mix of determination and fear. But I didn't have any answers yet. The next night, I set up the CPAP again. I knew it wasn't working, but I had no other choice. As I laid down, the weight of the mask against my face felt heavier than ever. My mind raced with a million thoughts, the hum of the machine doing little to calm me. Would I stop breathing again? Would tonight be the night my heart finally gave out? I barely slept. I was too focused on the sensation of the air flowing in and out of my lungs, constantly checking the mask to make sure it stayed secure, listening to every little beep and buzz from the machine. Around 3 a.m., the beeping from the machine stopped. The room fell, unnervingly silent. And then my phone buzzed. It was the sleep lab. I didn't hesitate. I answered immediately. "Hello!" My voice cracked from exhaustion. "We need you to come in again, Hannah. It's urgent. Please don't wait." There was no room for hesitation. Something was wrong, and this time it was serious. I grabbed my jacket, my hands trembling, and quickly told my mum. We drove to the lab once more, the silence in the car suffocating. The air felt thin, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. When we arrived at the lab, it was quieter than usual. The lights were dimmed, and the techs were moving quickly, glancing at me with anxious eyes. James and Megan, the other tech, were there again, but their faces were filled with a sense of urgency I hadn't seen before. They sat me down in front of a computer screen that was flashing with data, numbers I didn't understand, but I didn't need to know them to see the concern on their faces. "Hannah, we've reviewed your results. It's not just sleep apnea," James began, his voice tight. "You're stopping breathing for long periods of time. Your oxygen levels are plummeting at times. It's as if you're suffocating without even knowing it." I swallowed hard. What does that mean? My voice was barely above a whisper. We need to act fast, Megan cut in. We've seen this before. It's rare, but it's serious. Your airways aren't just closing, they're completely shutting off, and the CPAP isn't enough to fix it. You need immediate treatment. Treatment? I choked on the word. What kind of treatment? We don't have all the answers yet, but we need to run a few more tests to see the full scope. But right now, we're concerned. Very concerned. The words very concerned hit me harder than anything they had said before. This wasn't just sleep apnea. It wasn't just some minor sleep disorder. Something was wrong, something big. I felt my world tilt on its axis. My heart raced as I looked at their faces, James and Megan, who'd been so calm just days ago now. They were looking at me as if I were on borrowed time. This could be dangerous, Hannah, James said quietly. We might need to consider options that go beyond just the CPAP machine. I felt the weight of those words sink into my chest. Dangerous. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was staring me in the face. I tried to push the fear down, but it was suffocating. I wanted to run out of that room, to escape the reality of what they were saying. But I couldn't. I needed answers. I had to know what was going on with my body, even if it meant facing the worst. The techs took more blood, did more scans, and hooked me back up to a new set of machines. They assured me it would be quick. But I could tell by the way they moved, by the way they avoided looking me in the eye, that they weren't sure what they were going to find. The days that followed were a blur of tests, doctor visits, and anxious waiting. I couldn't sleep, not really. The fear was too overwhelming. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind raced with the thought that I might stop breathing again, and this time, no one would be there to save me. Each time, I went back to the lab. It felt like the walls were closing in. James and Megan kept me informed, but their faces became more serious with each visit. They told me the tests were inconclusive, that they needed more time to figure out what was going on with me, but all I could think about was the waiting. The endless waiting. Then, one afternoon I got the call that would change everything. Hannah? It was Dr. Patel, the sleep specialist who had been overseeing my case. We need to talk. You need to come in as soon as possible. My stomach dropped. I could hear it in her voice. This wasn't a routine checkup. This was something more. My heart raced as I dialed my mum, and within minutes we were in the car heading to the lab again. I barely spoke the whole way. I couldn't. My mind was racing and my heart was pounding in my chest, every second feeling like it was dragging on forever. I knew this was going to be the moment when I would finally get the truth, but I didn't know if I was ready to hear it. When we arrived at the lab, James and Megan were waiting for me. Their faces were grim, and the usual calm they carried was gone. They didn't offer me any small talk or reassurance. They just motioned for me to sit down. Dr. Patel entered the room a few minutes later, holding my file in her hands. She looked at me, her face more serious than I had ever seen. Hannah, we've been reviewing your tests, she said, sitting down in front of me. The results show something that's very rare, and it's why we couldn't pinpoint it earlier. You don't just have sleep apnea, you have a condition called central sleep apnea. It's a neurological disorder where your brain doesn't signal your body to breathe properly during sleep. It's much more dangerous than the typical obstructive sleep apnea, and it explains the episodes you've been having. I blinked, trying to process her words. So, my brain isn't telling my body to breathe? I asked, my voice shaky. Yes, she replied softly. When you sleep, your brain is failing to send the signals to your respiratory system to keep breathing. As a result, your oxygen levels drop dramatically, sometimes dangerously low. Your body starts gasping for air, but it doesn't wake you up because you're asleep. That's why you wake up feeling like you're suffocating. I sat back in my chair, stunned. This wasn't just some sleep disorder I could control with a mask or some pills. This was serious, life-threatening. I had been walking around, almost suffocating every night, and I hadn't even known it. This condition is rare, Dr. Patel continued, but it can be deadly if left untreated, and your symptoms have been getting worse, which is why we needed to act quickly. I felt the breath leave my body. Every ounce of strength I had was drained from me in an instant. I had been terrified, sure, but now I realized how close I had come to losing everything. So what do we do? My voice trembled as I looked at Dr. Patel. How do I fix this? We have a treatment plan, she said. But it's going to require more than just a CPAP. You'll need a BiPAP machine, which is a more advanced device that can control both the air pressure and your breathing. It will provide you with more precise control over your breathing patterns during the night. We'll also have to start monitoring you more frequently. It's going to be a long road, but this is something we can manage with the right tools. Will I ever be okay again? I asked. My voice felt small and helpless. We can manage it, Dr. Patel replied, her voice steady. But there's no simple fix. This will be something you'll have to live with, but with the proper treatment, you can lead a normal life. I stared at the floor, letting the weight of her words settle in. I could live, but I'd always have to be careful. Always. The first night with the BiPAP was strange, the mask was heavier, the pressure stronger, but for the first time in months, I felt the tension lift. I could breathe. I could finally breathe. And as the days passed, I started to adjust. I still had moments of fear, especially at night when the darkness felt overwhelming, but slowly, the terror began to fade. I began to trust the machine, to trust that it was working. My mum was more present than ever, and though she was still worried, I could see the relief in her eyes. We no longer tiptoed around the subject. We talked about it openly, as if the weight of the unknown had finally been lifted. But there were consequences, not just medical. My friends started to notice the changes too. I couldn't hide my exhaustion anymore. I couldn't pretend I was the same as everyone else. But they understood. They didn't look at me like I was fragile. They looked at me like I was surviving. There were days I still felt like I was walking on a tightrope, just one breath away from the edge. But I'd never been more determined to live, to fight, to keep going. When I looked in the mirror now, I didn't see someone trapped in fear. I saw someone who had made it through the hardest battle of her life. Someone who had learned to trust her body again. Mum, I said one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I think I'm going to be okay. She smiled, relief flooding her features. And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it.
So, was it just a medical mistake, or is something more sinister at play here?